There are Muslims who are bipolar. There are Muslims who have border personality disorder. There are Muslims who express suicidal ideation. There are Muslims who are bulimic. There are Muslims who are anorexic. There are Muslims who suffer from body image issues. There are Muslims who have challenges with depression. There are Muslims who have challenges with bereavement. There are Muslims who have everything that you can imagine. Because to suddenly become Muslim does not make you devoid of the realities of life. And good religion is about understanding reality. Not bubbles of existence that exist within romanticized notions and ideals that make life intangible for people because you only think through a frame that doesn't take what's real into consideration. A book of fiqh in and of itself is not going to answer these questions. It will tell you what is haram, it will tell you what is halal, it will tell you the formulaic mechanisms through which you can actively engage in worship of God. But as it tells you the time to pray Fajr and it tells you how to pray Fajr, it's not going to tell you why you don't pray Fajr or why someone else does not pray Fajr. It's not going to tell you why someone else doesn't fast. It's not going to tell you who you should get married to. It's not going to give you specific answers that when you look at the prophetic tradition, the Prophet of God, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, connected to people where they came from, not through just generalized principles of black and white. So we have to build. And we have to build, and if you can't think about it with love that says just do it because it's the right thing to do, then understand that it's a question that we're going to be asked about. Why did we not build the shelters? Why did we not build the services? Why are we not pouring our money into the hotlines, into the shelters, into all of the things that serve people? What is the difference when you think about communities across the Muslim world and you look historically to what our religion is about? There's a center in Chicago that if you are serious about this, you can go and look at what they have done and how they take psychotherapy and they take spirituality and they meld it together, utilizing our religious tradition. It's called the Khalil Center. They have a YouTube channel that has amazing videos, and the most watched video probably has like 100 views, which is sad. One that you want to look at is just the origins of mental health awareness within the Muslim world. The Islamic origins of mental health. It's a beautiful lecture. And it talks about how from the 9th century of our tradition, you had sheikh after sheikh and scholar after scholar who wrote about emotional wellness, mental wellness, and not in the frame of just saying that it's all spiritual malady. There's something wrong with your heart. That's why you can't take on challenge. But it says huzn, sorrow, is when you lose somebody that you love, for example. Or when you lose something that your heart is attached to. It defines sadness as sadness, and it talks about things in what we would call in modern parlance just cognitive behavioral therapy. To look at what you eat and what you drink and what you consume and the company you keep. It says to go and talk to people when you're in need, to seek counseling, to seek therapy. And the likes of Imam Tabari, rahimahullah, Imam Razi, rahimahullah, Imam Farabi, rahimahullah, Imam Ghazali, rahimahullah, over and over from that century to the 13th century, they talk about it in the same way it's talked about now. And when you look at what's happening in the European context at the same time, the dark ages are hitting. People who have challenges with mental health in Europe, they're literally being buried and burned alive. Because they're told that they're demonic. That everything comes from ulterior places like jinns. And at that time, the Muslims are saying, no, there's a lot of stuff that's much deeper than that. And the counterparts in the rest of the world are saying something different. And today, the scenario has switched. How does that happen, man? And where does it come from? And I would say it comes from the absence of institutional mechanisms, because what we hear is what we have access to and awareness of. In most spaces, the member does not discuss this, not because they shouldn't, but because the same socialization brings up the same conversations and it's talked about in the same manners. But when you have other apparatus around you that can inform your identity, you take from certain spaces certain things and other spaces other things, you become well-rounded. You don't have to go through experience to understand, but you start to exist in a frame that is not that I have to go through it to realize it exists. I understand it exists because it's been given to me. And when we don't do it, and we don't put our money into it, and we don't support those who have stood on this stage and have told you what it is that they do professionally to help in this way, it just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. May Allah forgive us for this. I can tell you that of anything that I see in the work that I do, everywhere that I go, in any part of the world, people are just in pain. Young and old, male and female, every race, every ethnicity, every class. You are not somehow immune to it if you are 60 or 70 years old. I sat down with a father and his son the other day. The father was 71. The son is 35. The son is in a place where he has no affection towards his father because growing up, the father beat him, hit him, ridiculed him, mocked him. There was no presence of positive affection, love, mercy, anything. And this young man is saying to his father that these are the things you did to me. And the father breaks down to such an extent because he now has to go through his own cognitive dissonance. Because for him to affirm that what he has done to his son is wrong necessitates him having to admit that what his own father did to him was wrong. And this 70-year-old man breaks down in tears, straight out of the Indian subcontinent. I'm just going to share with you 2 quick examples left and then I'll wrap up. This young man came to talk to me and he said he hates his father. I said, why do you hate your father? And he said he's always yelling at me and telling me I'm good for nothing. And I said, why does your dad talk to you like this? And he said, he's just an angry person. And I said, when did he start talking to you like this? And he said, ever since I was little, this is how he would talk to me. I said, if he's always talked to you like this, why does it bother you now? And he said, I can't take it anymore. I said, tell me what's going on in the rest of your life. And he said, things are amazing. I'm doing research with a professor. I'm going to graduate with honors. I'm taking all grad level classes for that. I have a part-time job. I met a young woman that I really like. And as he keeps going with each of these things, I say to him, that sounds like a lot of stuff all at once. And when he opens up, in a space that is not just say the right thing or don't say the wrong thing, but just say what you want so that not only I hear you, you hear you. You can self-express and start to think about the things that you're thinking about. He said this professor is really demanding in particular about the way he wants things done. I used to be able to do my homework in my part-time job, but now they make me do actual work, so I'm falling behind in class. He said, this girl, I don't even know if she likes me. She just yells at me all the time. He said, look, man, I'm not justifying the way your dad talks to you. But what you identify as the absolute problem in your life, which is your father. And you don't see how this professor, this girl, your job, your school, makes this feel like this. And all of this is just sitting on the side of your heart. And I said, do you want to never talk to your dad again? He was like, no, how can I do that? And I said, do you want to pretend like none of it's happening? He's like, no, I can't do that either. So I said, you've told yourself this is your only problem. You don't see how all of this makes it feel that much heavier. And you've also told yourself there's no way out of this, which adds another layer of negativity and anxiety. In the midst of all of this pain, where are you finding anything that's deliberately positive? Where are you interjecting anything that's even slightly going to be uplifted? He said, I don't know. You want to understand why it's important to talk to people who are trained and professional? Because sadness, which is fine to feel, feels like anger, which is also fine to feel, and it feels like anguish, it feels like pain, it feels like anxiety, it all feels the same. And when you have something that triggers it even slightly, it erupts the entire individualistic. It tells you that you can't express emotion. It tells you that you can't express fear. It tells you that if you inhibit yourself in those ways, that somehow you will succeed. But what are you succeeding in the worldly sense? In comparison to what it's doing to the most precious part of you, internally. I had another woman who came to see me who's a doctor in our community. Our center caters to 3,000 Muslim students at NYU, but about 5,000 or 6,000 people who just live and work in the surrounding area. And I'd never spoken to this woman before. She comes to our center. I'd seen her around, and when she sat down with me, it was really clear she lost about 20 pounds. And when she started talking to me, she told me about a young man that she was in a relationship with through med school and residency, and then things got cut off because his family had said that we don't really think she'll fit in with us, and he eventually decided to side with them, and she ended that relationship by yelling, screaming, and cursing at this man. I said to her, "Why aren't you eating?" And she said, "I don't know." I said, "What do you do to deal with this?" And she said, "I used to hang out with my friends, but I feel like everybody knows that it didn't work out with this guy, and I feel so pathetic and I feel so pitiful that now I don't even hang out with them." I said, "What would you do if you hung out with your friends?" And she said, "We'd probably go out to eat." And I said, "Then go hang out with your friends." And I said, "Look, what probably happens is you get home at the end of the night after a long day's work of being a doctor. You open up a laptop to order some food, and you start thinking about why you're eating by yourself. And you say you're such a loser because you can't even eat with other people. The thoughts start to interject into your psyche, and you say that everybody knows that it didn't work out with you and this man, and he'll probably marry somebody else, and you're going to be single for the rest of your life, and nobody's going to ever want to be with you. And you start to think about why he's not there. And all the positive experiences now feel negative as well because they're tied to somebody who you envisioned something with, but they're not there anymore, and the future you thought you'd have also adds heaviness. And you think about why he's not there and how his family judged you before even knowing you. Didn't give you adequate opportunity to just present yourself, but they couldn't break out of a culturally hegemonic attitude towards religion that put what they felt was important to them before what you thought was important for you. And then you think about how he sided with you, or them rather, and you feel betrayed, and you couldn't understand how somebody you cared about so much just turned their back on you. And then you think about how the last thing you said to this person that you had a deep care for was you yelling and cursing and screaming. And it makes you feel ugly inside, that that's how you ended things. And I say by that time you close the computer, you don't eat anything, you're in tears in your bed, and you cry yourself to sleep in that way. I had never talked to this woman before. And she said in the last 2 weeks that's happened to me 3 times. And I said, "Look, I can't change your heartbreak. I wish I had something that could do that. But tell me, how is it going to help if you're not eating well? And if you're not eating well, you're probably not drinking well. And if you're not eating or drinking, that sleep that you're taking, even if it's long, is going to wake you up more exhausted than when you went to bed in the first place, because you're going to be dehydrated. It's going to cause you pain in your head." And I said to her, "Realize something. All of this that's sitting inside of you, you went through all of that over and over and over just by opening up a laptop. That it by itself triggered it. It can be that simple. But if you don't enact good understandings of yourself holistically, you don't just drown out the noise when it's saying that yes, you should exercise, yes, you should be mindful of what you eat, yes, you should be mindful of what you drink, how you sleep, the company you keep, everything our tradition tells us. As life stresses keep coming, they're going to keep knocking you down. And then you're going to have an inability to build what we started this conversation with, because you're going to only see things through the frame of that pain that exists. If I could give you 2 things practically that you could do in general, and I would say as a disclaimer, this is not a room in which you take life for your own personal, emotional, mental wellness. Your heart is more precious than being in a space like this and having somebody who came from somewhere else just tell you things. The same concept, your healing is not going to come from watching a YouTube video of somebody talking to an audience of 10 or 10,000. You're not even in the audience, and all of you are so different from one another, it necessitates specific care. Have somebody who mentors you. Have somebody that you open up to. I couldn't tell you what that person needs to be. I personally don't think they need to be Muslim, but they could be. I don't think they have to be religious figures, but they could be. They don't have to be family. They don't have to be friends. They should be people who know how to listen before they jump to tell you what to do without even hearing what it is you're going through. If somebody always has an answer to something, they're probably not the right person to be talking to. Beyond that, there's a lot more that's just tied to you. Your culture, your race, your ethnicity, your class. And when you set up mechanisms programmatically, understand that people connect non-verbally as well. It's not just about what you say, but how it's being said, who's going to say it. Some people will not want to talk to me simply because I am not black like them. I am not white like them. I am not female like them. I am not homosexual like them. I am not old like them or as young as them. There's complexity to people's identities. One person cannot fit everyone in that sense. And again, on the side, this should give us insight truly as to how remarkable a man the Prophet ﷺ was. Sorry. That he was able to just connect to people. So I would say that practically what you want to look at, because all of us have this in our lives, start to see just fundamentally how you take care of your physical being. What you're eating, how you're eating, the quality of it, what you're drinking, how much water you're drinking, cut out stuff that's not good for you, and wean yourself off. Not in extreme levels, but some days will be good, some days will not be good. The days that are good will exceed the ones that are not. And even after a long number of days, if you fall, that's okay, just get back up. And then in specific, I would say utilize gratitude as best as you can as a vehicle to enhance a sense of contentment. Don't apply your contentment to things external, because those things will not always be there. Seek to build internal sense of contentment. And not to think in absolutes. The seeking of gratitude does not mean by default you're an ingrate. It's not always those polars. So what positive psychology teaches us is that you keep a gratitude journal. Every day, every few days, every few weeks, you just write down what you're appreciative of, what's a blessing in your life. And it's embedded in our tradition where the Prophet of God tells us after every prayer, say Subhanallah, say Alhamdulillah, say Allahu Akbar. But don't just rotely write it off on your digits of your finger, attach meaning to it. And be purposeful and sit in moments of stillness where your heart's not drawn to work or something else, but in that prayer time where there's barakah, use it as a way to center yourself. And the second thing, which I'll end with, is that you want to write what they call gratitude letters. Thank you letters to people who have done for you so that you can break some of that universal negativity down. Because in the midst of the sea that says nothing is working for me, your first catalyst for change can be, well, there is still that person who gets it, who helped me when nobody else helped me. After you write it for yourself, a second step, if you're able to and you have the capacity, you just go share it with a person. When I've told my community to do this, the people who write the letters feel extreme validation, and the people who they read it to, they also feel validation, because a lot of people like to be thanked. Somebody put the tables down that you're sitting at today. Did you know that? When you leave from here, somebody's going to clean this floor. Do you ever say thank you to them? And not in a way that's self-deprecating, but when you can bring that value and you say that there's someone in my life that I can appreciate, it doesn't just do for the person you're thanking, it does a lot for you. It breaks away some of that heaviness. In this thank you letter to my mother, I said, thank you, because you cooked for us us when we were all sleeping so we could have a meal to begin our fast with. I said, thank you for letting us eat while you stood and watched and only eating after we finished. And once we had prayed Fajr, thank you for staying up and continuing to cook so we would have a meal to break our fast on. And thank you for reading Quran while the rest of us were asleep after you took care of all of that, and then finding some way to still have the physical energy to go through that day. And I thanked her for attending things that I did as a child, sports events and other things at school. And I thanked her for taking my fiancée, Priya, into our lives and treating her as if she was her own daughter. And I thanked her for so many other things, and at the end of it, the tears just didn't stop pouring. And then I published it, and the next day, I got bombarded with all kinds of messages from people all over the world saying that we read what you wrote to your mother, and it really moved our hearts. Then my sister called me and she said that Mom read what you wrote and she's sitting here crying. You did a good job in writing it. And then a few months later, I sat with one of my students and I told her to do this as a means to start off with kind of mental health awareness for herself. And in the middle of the conversation, I stopped talking and she said, what's the matter? I said, you know what's crazy? I wrote that letter and I finished writing it and it moved me. And then I posted it online and hundreds and thousands of people read it all over the world. And even my own mother read it and she was moved. I know that. I said, I still haven't gone to my mother face to face and said thank you to her. I said, why is it so hard? Why is that so difficult? Tell people you love them. Smile in a way that can actually be a sadaqah. Express gratitude and appreciation. Understand that everyone does not go through what you have gone through, and there are some things that people will go through that you will never go through. Embrace real brotherhood and sisterhood. The hadith tells us the parable of love, mercy, and compassion, mawadda, rahma, and utfa of the believers is like a body. And when that body is ill, it feels some type of ailment in one part of its limbs, the entire body feels sleeplessness and fever. That means the simile is rooted in love, mercy, and compassion. Not shared culture, not shared experience, not shared reality, but love, mercy, and compassion. You gotta have that for one another, and to utilize that as a way to build. Inshallah ta'ala, we will build it, because we have the means. God has endowed us with the capacity. We just now have to affirm for ourselves that that's what our role is. والله تعالى أعلم وبالله التوفيق والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.